How does a boy like that go so wrong?
Well, I live in a crummy neighborhood.
The Bradys?
Oh, hell yeah. They got robbers, thugs, drug dealers, you name it.
In every series, the first episode usually acts as a pilot to sell its ideas to you. It acts as a hook, trying to get you invested from the very start. Today, we will be looking at a new Machinima series by Eclipse Productions called Affinity, and whether or not it can successfully hook its audience to its story. Affinity takes place in the setting we've seen before, in the Halo universe with the UNSC, Insurrectionists, and eventually the Covenant. But what it tries to do is it tries to tell a different perspective, one viewpoint that we don't see that much, which is the Marines. The only other series I know that does this and does this well is a Day series by Lambda D. In the case of Affinity, it tries to focus on relationships between Marines and more on of how the activities of the UNSC with the Insurrectionists at first. But this kind of counteracts with sort of the cliches we associate with some Machinimas. This is another Machinima that takes place with Reach within a UNSC backdrop that eventually leads on to the discovery of the Covenant, which is a premise that I've seen done countless times in other Machinimas. It kind of drifts away, but it comes dangerously close to being a cliche of itself. And it doesn't help either that the pacing is rather slow. There's far too much emphasis on explanations on what's doing here, what's going on here. But some of this doesn't serve us enough to explain exactly what is going on here. For example, there's lots of explanations on operations and different characters that are inhabiting the setting, but there's not a lot of explanation on what's going on here, why these people are here, what do these things mean, and what is their importance. And going back to what I say was cliche is that a lot of the story beats are pretty predictable. It's a predictable plot that if you watch enough Machinimas or any action movies in general, you can kind of guess when the story beats are going to happen. A bunch of guards guarding a post, they're probably all gonna die. A villain acting as an interrogator who promises the lives of these men eventually shoots them. Not to mention this series is affiliated with the Halo universe, we can already guess the main plot twist is that the Covenant are attacking. Riveting. And I don't want to hamper on this too much because this series has the potential on discussing a perspective that we don't see much in Machinima or in Halo in general. Like, it's trying to be different from every Hexian Machinima that has Spartans and Covenant, yet it plays so close to the story beats and cliches that we see in these Machinimas. It seems more like a fresh coat of paint rather than actually changing the substance. It doesn't go too deep to this, but if you notice it, it kind of hampers on your enjoyability of the story because you know what's going to happen, you know these things, you've seen these cliches before, and it feels like you're watching the same Machinima all over again. Onto the characters, this is a rather mixed bag if I'm going to be honest. The characters are well established and seem to have good chemistry with one another, but the thing about it is that they're not interesting enough. If you watch this Machinima, go back and say which was your favorite character and why. You'd probably either mention just one or not even one. Just name qualities of each character. You're probably not going to name any. You're probably going to say, well, this is the first episode, we have to see how these characters develop, but I've seen plenty of first episodes or first parters, like even Rise of the Spartans is able to establish its characters with neat character qualities from the very first part from the get-go. Now, they're not awful characters, it's just that they don't seem memorable enough. There's nothing interesting about them, and some of them follow a few stereotypes, like the stereotypical deep-voiced leader, or the female who's probably a sniper, and the calmly voiced rookie. It follows some of that stuff in Machinima. Besides not knowing who these characters are, we kind of don't understand their place in the story or what they're here for. Some of the dialogue is also a mixed bag. Some of it seems diverse and defines a few of the characters, while other times it seems cringy and sometimes by the books. Going back to the story, it seems like it follows a bit of beats that we've already seen before.
This is the command center. All long-range transmissions occur right here in this room. Blackwing headquarters is the third largest military base here on Reach.
I was a rookie not too long ago, you know.
Well, you were
A woman.
experienced, is what I was going to say.
The cinematography for the most part is pretty serviceable. There's some nice camera angles and varied movements that the director tries to pull off. Every scene also doesn't seem to be too long or too fast with some cuts. It's really well paced with how the shots are being placed. Not to be confused with narrative pacing, the actual pacing of the shots and the frequency in which they occur is actually consistent, or it's not too fast or too slow, which I do appreciate. There are some cinematography rules that are broken, for example the 180-degree rule in this scene right here. You notice how the characters on the left or right seem to switch positions, and to the audience that may seem a bit disorientating, as they're trying to follow these characters in positions relative to the camera that they can kind of get confused on where these characters are in their positions. Basically, if two characters are talking, you want to have a character that's on the left side to always be on the left side of the camera, no matter if you're moving at 180 degrees, 90 degrees, or whatever. The fight scenes are a bit underwhelming. They could use more intensity in battle scenes, such as either with faster cuts or with more varied movement. Now, I did say the cuts to different shots is consistent and well paced, but at times there's some awkward cuts and transitions, like for this scene right here. It fades in from black, but then in mid-fade, it cuts to a different shot. That's a pretty jarring mistake if I do say so myself. Now for sound and music, it's serviceable. I'll say that, it's serviceable. Some of these sound effects are good and are well placed in the machinima, while for others, some of them are mistimed and feel awkwardly used. Like, listen to this sound effect right here. Do you think this kind of sound feels appropriate for this kind of setting of this type of machinima? It's a very awkward choice and I feel like it doesn't fit. There are also moments where there is in-game audio, and sometimes there's moments where there's no audio at all.
Are you the new transfer?
It's very inconsistent to use these in-game sound effects while not using them at all. You either go with one or the other. You don't do both because it can break the audience's immersion. They realize the audio is either in-game or fake, and you don't want that to happen. Another thing about this, and some people might think this is subjective, but this is more based on objective elements, and that is the music is inconsistent with its tone. There's a wide assortment of different types of music played in this machinima, and while you may point to different movies and games that sort of do this, like for example Ghost in the Shell or Kill Bill, the thing about this is that they're all consistent in style and tone, and they build more on the setting and the characters. However, in the beginning of the machinima, there is this big sort of epic choir music that seems like it more belongs in a medieval or fantasy-like movie, not a sci-fi military-based machinima. There are also several songs that are reused at the same times, like for example, I noticed that this song that is played back 3 times in the machinima.
We've lost contact with the northern checkpoint.
Most likely the result of an attack from local militia.
And upon further inspection, I just realized that this song is used in several Spanish soap operas. Huh. Another thing to point is that some of the music fades in weirdly and out. It seems very jarring when you start to hear one music play and then in the middle of the song it sort of cuts or fades out real quickly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's pretty weird to listen to. Not only that, some of the sound effects are inconsistent with their sound effects. I'm talking more about the effects applied to the sounds, not the sound effects themselves. Especially with the camera feed, you notice that there's a static sound effects of some of the sounds, but when you listen to some other sounds like here...
Thank you for your cooperation, gentlemen.
Compared to the other sounds, it sounds like it's not coming out of a camera feed at all. Okay, another mixed bag here. I don't want to harp on this too much because some of the voice acting is actually pretty good. Some of the actors inflected good, they give about a strong performance for some of their characters, while others are average and just seem like they read off a script to... bad mic quality.
Michael Walker.
How you doing?
The quality of voice acting is very inconsistent from being top of the line good to with borderline terrible, and some of this is not on the fault of the voice actors, it's more or less the fault of their microphone quality, which also adds a bit of inconsistency in which you can hear the static coming out of people's mics while others you can't. Again, breaks that immersion. Another thing inconsistent is with the bass of the actual voice actors' microphones. Listen to these 2 different voice actors. They're in the same position and the same proximity to the camera, but they sound like they're in 2 different positions, like one's very close, one's very far away.
I certainly hope not. Your parents still around?
I never really knew my father.
See what I mean? It sounds like one's close by and sounds like one's far away when they really shouldn't be. Now we're on to the visual effects department. I mentioned in my last review this is more of an extra thing, but I think this needs to be addressed as its own thing because it's a main part of the machinima and could affect your enjoyability and immersion to it. The color correction is a bit off. Half of the time it's serviceable and reflects a setting or mood, while other times it seems way too strong with intense blues and oranges. It seems like the editor sort of got the thought in their mind that having too much of an effect is always good, in which it shows right here that too much of something isn't always good. It actually leads to the opposite effect. Now don't get this confused with having too many effects, getting confused with too much of an effect. There are plenty of machinimas out there that have wide assortments of effects on them and they look rather nice and well detailed, while others where the effects are cranked up to the highest settings, they look like, ugh, god. And this is hampered on even more with some of the footage looking like it's recorded at a lower resolution. You can notice in the footage that there's some artifacting and grain going on, with even some distortion. Another thing wrong is the letterbox. If you don't know what a letterbox is, it's basically the black bars on the top and bottom of the screen that sort of gives a cinematic feeling to it. However, the letterbox is moving all over the place. You see it moving up and down, left and right, going completely off the screen and appearing right back in. And I think I know what they did. You can notice in the footage that there's sort of a camera shake effect applied to it. And I think what the editor did, or director, whoever did it, sort of applied the camera shake to the letterbox. Not only that, I think I know the exact camera shake effect they're using, because if you notice later on in the Machinima, there is mirrored edges on the side of the screen, and even mirrored edges in the middle of the footage. And good gosh, the final scene. I don't know what they did, but it's super dark, you can't even see what's going on. Ugh. This Machinima is a technical mess. And now, we're on to the final verdict. For the story, I'm gonna have to give it a 5. The problem with it is that there's potential for a new perspective, for an original take on UNSC and Covenant Machinimas. But it follows so close to story beats and cliches we've already seen before, where it seems predictable, that it seems like it's going to follow the same path that other Machinimas have gone through, and that's a real shame. Because honestly, it shows a bit of that potential that it could grow into something new. For the characters, as much as I feel they're not memorable, I'm gonna have to give it a 6, because going back and walking through this Machinima, I noticed a lot of good dialogue, character establishment going on, and it's a shame because I don't remember any of the characters' names or any of their qualities, unless I'm going through in the moment watching them. For the cinematography, I'm gonna have to give it a 7. There's nothing really bad about it, it's actually really serviceable, and it doesn't take you out of the experience, and it helps complement what's going on. Though I will say the fight scenes need a bit more intensity to them, and there's some awkward cuts, but it's nothing anything bad. I think it does a good job overall. For the sound and music, I'm gonna give it a 6. There's some weird placement and choices with sound and music, but overall, it does its job. For the voice acting, I'm gonna have to give a 6, and it's a darn shame because some of the voice acting is really good. It's just hampered on by the inconsistent mic quality and some bad performances. And for the visual effects, I'm gonna have to actually take 2 points away because it does hamper on the quality of this Machinima, no matter how good of effect you think it is, because a few of the shots look good, but I think they tried too hard and honestly hampered on the quality of the Machinima, quality of the footage, and quality of this presentation. Now, taking all these components together, and I'll have to give this Machinima a 6.2 out of 10, leading it to be a 6 out of 10. Affinity tries to take a new perspective, but suffers from following predictable story beats, too much exposition, not strongly establishing its characters, and inconsistencies with its sound and visual presentation. As being the first episode of a series, I don't think Eclipse Productions did a good job in hooking the audience to watch even further. I think there are some merits from this first episode, but I think that it doesn't do too much to make me want to watch even further or wait for a second episode. But who knows, maybe as the story progresses, it honestly gets good, I don't know. We only have the first episode to predict this by, and so far, it's not looking too bright. It's above average, but it's not looking too good for right now. Hopefully, Eclipse Productions, if you're watching this, you can sort of take away from what I've been saying, not as a way to sort of hit on you or attack you, but sort of as a way as to help you. Take what I said and apply it to the next episode, or to any other episode of any series and other Machinima you're working on. Because it's important as itself to hook your audience into your world, to hook your audience onto your characters, and to hook your audience onto your Machinima. If you don't have a good start, then most people will probably click off or not even bother with the rest of the Machinima. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you learned something or at least could take from this, and maybe you can apply it to your own Machinimas as well. If there's any Machinimas you've made or any Machinimas you've seen that you would like review, let me know in the comments and I'll try to get them as soon as possible. This is Grumpy Leet, and until next time.